So talk about the difference in production then and now. What has been the biggest change, or the biggest change or two since FoodMaven came in?
Actually, the biggest change has been the morale. You know, we had morale issues at first, but the morale has been picked up through FoodMaven, and also the production has been smoother. A lot of things have changed as far as getting new equipment, as far as driving for the guys, working and getting equipment into production. So as that has gone, FoodMaven has blessed us to get better equipment, so it makes our lives a lot easier to produce a consistent quality product.
Do you have the same amount of employees on the floor now as you did then, or have you added since FoodMaven came on board?
On the floor, it's pretty much the same. Where we added was mostly on the driver end, but we had acquired another cutter, but of course we lost the cutter, so turnover is quite a bit in the meat industry, unfortunately, but we're pretty steady.
Great, great. So talk about the FoodMaven side, and maybe Chris, this is where you can chime in a little bit. Either way, it doesn't matter, but what made this attractive for FoodMaven, and talk about the why in terms of acquiring this facility.
Sure. So one of the things that we were attracted to was that it was a facility that had capacity in it that was underutilized. So it was a capacity that had a certain top line, but we knew we could add to it and we could increase capacity. So that was very attractive to us. It was an independently owned business, and the business owner was interested in working out of the industry. So he was open to conversation, so it just worked out.
What did FoodMaven come in and say, all right, this is a great facility, we can make it even better by doing X? What was X in that world?
I think process improvement was important. I think having systems in place to do maintenance and to do operations routinely, do the routine things routinely. I think that was something that we brought to the table that they didn't have previously, that we were able to use to improve the way that they're functioning. So that was big. So the other thing that this allowed FoodMaven to do was to have a processing plant where we were able to capture a product that was oversupplied or couldn't be sold in the configuration that it was cut into, and we could recut it or reprocess it into something that could be sold to the market. So basically meeting market demand.
But you're still producing the previous product here that Anderson was doing before. It's just that was added to the docket, as you were.
Yes.
Okay. So, rough percentage, business-wise, what percentage of the work that's done on the floor is the recut, the product you're bringing in, versus the actual, former Anderson product, if you will, that's still going out?
I'd say it's probably 90-10. Is that safe? 90-10?
In favor of
the Anderson product
okay.
that was offered previously, and then we're slowly introducing some other products into it that we can then reconfigure for the marketplace.
From the FoodMaven side, how has the transition gone? What did you guys have to come in? Harold mentioned morale has been up. What did you guys have to come in and do, and kind of, every acquisition, when you're being acquired, it's like, oh no.
Right. It's
so
frightening
how did you?
time.
Yeah, it can be scary. It can be nerve-wracking. How did you guys kind of bridge that and make everybody relax, and then also help to boost the morale?
Yeah, definitely. So we spent a lot of time here. So a lot of presence in the facility from the leadership, so management, and from our executive team. So just kind of presence in the facility and being here side by side with the employees and listening to them and listening to their fears and trying to address those fears, but also looking for opportunities. So it was great that management was on site so that we could look for opportunities for improvement, which was really exciting because the employees actually had felt pretty frustrated, I think, under the old ownership, because they weren't being listened to, but their ideas weren't being taken into consideration and implemented. And the employees were fantastic. They had great ideas on how to improve operations. And it was small things, just getting new coats that they could wear on the floor. Like they were having to buy their own coats, and it wasn't a professional appearance. And now we have a professional laundry service for them. So we set something like that up. We also, something as small, and you understand if you've been in production facilities, but knives are incredibly important to our butchers. So one of the things that we put in was just a knife service. So they don't have to purchase their own knives, they don't have to pay for cutting or sharpening their own knives or replacing their own knives. So now we put a professional knife service in place that supports our cutters. So, small changes like that go a big way with our employees.
And really things that, from my, semi-educated perspective, are like, really, you guys had to buy your own coats and buy your own knives and all that?
Own
That's
gloves,
crazy.
too.
Yeah,
Wow,
own gloves.
wow.
Yep.
Wow.
So,
That's very unusual,
Had
at
to
least
do
in
our
my
own
experience.
laundry.
Wow.
yep. Yeah.
So what did FoodMaven learn from them when you brought them on board?
I think we learned a lot about the meat processing industry and employee turnover. I think that was a big surprise, is that there is a tremendous amount of employee turnover. So some of the improvements I was talking about is some ways that we could keep employees on hand, try to invest in the employees, let them feel like their ideas were being listened to so that they could then participate in the growth of the organization. So I think that was a bit of a surprise. Let's see what else. I think learning about the meat industry and all factors of the meat industry, the cuts, the different kinds of meats, what is possible with meat, and also what are the opportunities for growth. I think we've also learned from Harold a lot about that.
The future, in terms of this facility, is there room to grow within the walls? Is there room to expand, maybe reconfigure things? What does the future hold for this facility in terms of, more capacity and things like that?
So I'm going to do a two-part answer. First, I'm going to talk from the operations standpoint, then I'm going to let Harold talk from the meat processing standpoint. But from the operations standpoint, we definitely want it to grow. We definitely want to continue to invest in the facility and continue to integrate it with the rest of our operations, our distribution operations, and with our other customers that FoodMaven brought into the relationship. We definitely want to continue to grow that and to grow the amount that we're able to produce and ship from here. So I would say absolutely. As far as the facility goes, we have some facility limitations because the facility is a fairly small facility. So we kind of consider this a 2-year facility, maybe be here for the next couple of years, but by then we hope we'll grow enough to be able to move into a new facility somewhere down the road. There is some capacity out there, and I'm going to allow Harold to talk about that.
Oh yeah, capacity. Right now we're a small plant, but we can do quite a bit within these walls. There's always room for growth, but what we have here, we're not limited. In other words, I can do pretty much anything if I got the right amount of time. So with the new facility on board in 2 years, the sky's the limit.
Very cool.
I think one of the other things that was kind of a learning point, and the other thing that we're growing, is a relationship with USDA. So when we acquired Anderson, that was the first time we entered into a relationship with USDA. Under our former facilities, under our distribution facilities, that's a relationship with FDA. So this was the first time that we had an opportunity to work closely with USDA. So that was a big learning curve, I think, too. And we actually, for the first 6 months I was here, had a wonderful USDA inspector who is here on site every single day. So we are a USDA facility. And the inspector comes on site every day. But anyways, that inspector taught me personally a lot about meat production and how USDA looks at safety regulations, and just providing us information and teaching and coaching and guidance on how to do it and do it as best as possible and as safe as possible.
So as FoodMaven grows, are you kind of leaning on this plant as a good model for this type of growth in other cities when you start expanding? Or is this just kind of a great opportunity that kind of fell into FoodMaven's lap and may not be able to be replicated in another city necessarily?
Yeah, I think we're open to replicating it in other facilities. This was certainly a learning experience that now we can take forward and apply to other facilities that we acquire down the road. But we're open to acquiring either distributors or more producers. It just depends. It has to be the right situation on both sides for the seller as well as the buyer.
And then last wild card question for Harold. What are you most proud of here? Being here and then going through this transition with FoodMaven, when it comes to your people or the folks that are out here, what do you, when you sit there, when you go home at night and you sit down and you have a nice drink or whatever it is and you say, wow, we blank, what do you have, what really?
Well, for me, what I'm most proud of is that we put in a good day's work. Everybody goes home with that morale that they did something good. Before it was like scrambling and struggling. Now it's like, cool. So I can do that. That kind of mentality is what I'm most proud of.
So one of the things I'm most proud about is people like Harold able to step up and take ownership of the facility and really be able to just make good decisions, be a valued member of the team, and also the players that are out on the floor. You know, for them it was a big change, and for them to embrace FoodMaven and really invest in just growing it and staying on and figuring out what it can be and what it can become, and just participating in that process, that change, has been wonderful to see.
That actually sparked one more question in my head, which was, and I kind of wanted to, and I just forgot about it, but talk about the mesh in the culture and in the way of thinking around, basically, you know, this is an old school meat processing plant, right? And the new school FoodMaven, no food waste concept, right? So you're trying to get some old school meat processing guys and gals and whatever, you know, to buy into this. Is there a need for that to mesh? And if so, how has that, you know, gone?
I'll say absolutely a need to mesh so that we have a cohesive culture in FoodMaven. We definitely want to have a cohesive culture. We don't want one facility to feel independent from other facilities, or one location to feel independent from another location. We definitely want them to all have a meshed culture. So yes, that's big. And under change management, I think that's the one thing that people always underestimate, is the change in culture and how to make that change happen. I think that's one of the things that's really difficult. For me as a leader, one of the things that's important for me in order to make sure that people feel involved and invested in the new culture is through coaching, teaching, and mentoring. So it's been really important for me to have a close coaching and teaching and mentoring relationship with Harold, which I've worked hard to develop with him, but also just being available on the floor and making sure that they feel like that they've not only got tools available, but they're trained to use those tools. They understand the systems, why the systems are in place. Understanding the why is really important. But and then putting into writing like job descriptions and making sure they're trained to that job description, making sure that they have either video training or hands-on training or whatever needs to be done in order to for them just to feel like they understand the culture and that they're a part of it and that they can replicate it in their own facility.
And you're right, in any acquisition, corporate culture meshing is big. But I think what I'm getting at is, because the meat processing piece is still kind of its own little independent part, right? Do the cutters have to buy into the fact that FoodMaven is this ultra progressive concept, ultra progressive idea, or can they just treat the new FoodMaven business that comes in as just another order that they have to, you know, process as a meat processor? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think it's a balance.
Okay.
I think some, and it's for every individual who works for FoodMaven. I don't think this is unique to just this plant. But for every individual here at FoodMaven, you know, they find their own internal reasons why they're doing what they're doing, why they work for FoodMaven. Some people may be just job driven. You know, they want to come in, they want to do the job, they want to make some, you know, their salary, and they want to go home at the end of the day. But then other things, when I talk to employees, they're excited about our donation program, for instance. I was talking to one of the employees on the floor today that we set up a donation relationship with a wildlife sanctuary here, because some of the meat that was coming off the floor was going to waste, and we didn't want that to go to waste. We want it to be all food used with good purpose. So one of the things we did was we set up this relationship. So I was talking to one of the employees today about that, and she was so excited. She's like, I literally have goosebumps. I'm so excited about that. And that was Tammy, who's right behind us. Mm-hmm. She was just so pumped. Like, to her, that really spoke to her.
Cool.
So I think seeing how things can be done better, even within this industry, does speak to some of these employees.